My name is Chase. I'm an addict.
Hi, Chase.
I'm an addict that got clean in West Los Angeles. I'm from the SoCal region. My clean date's December 1st, 2015. I'm grateful to participate in any type of convention. I really just came out here to support my friend Stephanie. She's one of the speakers we have this weekend. That's really why I came out here. And I got to, participate a little more in this convention than I thought I was going to be. But like I said, man, like I'm just really grateful. So searching for love, settling for sex. I might know a little something just because when I'm not working a spiritual principle, I too can be a trap, and I too can be trapped. So I just want to start from the beginning. I always felt like I came from a good family, but maybe they were just too distracted with work or something, man, because I was always getting left on the hang at the babysitter's house. And I remember one weekend I was spending the night at the babysitter's house, and I was 8 years old. They had a 12-year-old daughter who was already smoking and drinking, and she sexually abused me. And I also remember that night because that's the night she gave me my first hit of weed. She gave me my first sip of E&J brandy, and she showed me my first Nirvana song. So I remember that night, right? But I also remember feeling forgotten, and I also remember feeling abandoned, and that's where my search for love began. So whether it was getting high or whether it was female attention, I would take it. And when I was 13 years old, I started doing harder drugs, and I started getting locked up, and I started going to juvenile hall. And I remember my girlfriend breaking up with me over the phone. I remember going to the cell and crying, and I remember one of the homies walking by and clowning me, and I remember taking flight. And it just taught me never let them see you cry. Hold that shit in. There ain't no love around here, you know? And it was a perfect recipe for me to get loaded. Every time I got out, I got loaded, I got another girl, I got locked up, I got left on the hang, and I would just obsess in that cell month after month about how I wasn't good enough to be loved, you know? And so every time I got out of incarceration, I was always searching for love in all the wrong places. I was always settling for an unhealthy girl that would really help my disease of addiction spiral out of control and would really open up that wound for I would learn later would be called attachment trauma, right? And so even clean, even in my recovery, when I settle for less and I'm with an unhealthy partner and I too get split in two, after the end of a relationship, all of that untreated disease of addiction mixed and meshed together with all that attachment trauma that gets activated. Just in my experience, for me, the way that I feel and I get stuck on a person is a not voluntary obsession about another person. It's a low-level tugging, a low-level reminder to just stay focused on the other person. It's I can't get a break from the intensity, and it's a headache that's just preoccupied with another person. And it's I go to sleep, I wake up in the morning, the first 5 seconds is clear, and then the awareness kicks in that I don't have love. The awareness kicks in that I'm not with that person anymore. And so pretty much I spend the day anxious as fuck. I can't be in the moment. I'm hypersensitive. My mind's looping around and around like a broken record. And the reason my mind is looping around and around like a broken record is because that person is the potential for me getting love. That person in my mind's image represents love. They symbolize connection, right? They become the object of acceptance for me. And so I know what it's like to experience the absence of love and go so long without that. Even if I'm with the person who's not the best partner for me, clearly it's a not so wonderful relationship, but I settle for less. I settle for sex, and I don't even know I am, because low-key that's all they have to offer. And after that inevitable breakup, right, my mind being under the influence of being wounded so many times in the past and jumping into one relationship after another because I don't want to feel all of that unresolved grief and make peace with having a history of just being ignored, right? All that locked up, being betrayed, being denied connection. So when I go through a little breakup and I'm searching for love and I'm settling for less, my mind's telling me I don't have love, I don't have acceptance, I don't have someone there for me, I don't have reassurance. And so not only did that have a lot to do with me at that time not being at peace with being alone, but I just never had a consistent amount of love in my life. And luckily, I've been around just long enough to get taught to pull the projection off the person. Like, I'm not obsessed about the person. I'm obsessed about the feeling that's underneath. I'm obsessed about the feeling that's underneath that's too painful to touch. But if I'm not willing to touch and see where it's hurting and heal that wound, I will allow unhealthy girls in my life that are really going to make my addiction worse. It's going to make my self-esteem non-existent. It's going to harm my spirit. And like, man, I'm a willing participant in it all sometimes, right? And so I'm willing to believe in the fantasy, even if it's just to escape myself for a few seconds. And at that time, it made me real shallow. It was real painful. Like I said, I was a willing participant in it all. And like, I don't know, man. It just got real shallow. And so I'm willing to look outside of myself with sex for any chick that's down to fuck. And I really end up in some situations I really don't want to be in. I ain't got no business in Compton, but I'll be in Compton if the chick is cute and she's down to fuck. And afterwards, I mean, there's been a few times I even been catfished, man. I'm like, that ain't how you look in your pictures. You know what I mean? Angles, right? So I still smash, and like afterwards, I'm like, why did I do that? You know what I mean? And I don't realize like it's harming my spirit. Not only is it harming my spirit, it's probably harming their spirit as well, because we're both just reinforcing that all we have to offer are our bodies. You know, and it's making that low self-esteem that we probably already both have lower and lower and lower and lower. Right? Like, I think it's cool because from the beginning I'm letting you know, like, I don't want a relationship. Like, I just want to fuck. And if you catch feelings, like, it's on you. Ain't no spiritual shit coming out of any of that. Like, it's that unspoken agreement for mutual destruction that happens in these rooms, right? And so, like, at the time, I think I'm being a player, but I'm just being a hoe. I think I'm being a player, but I'm just scared of love, because all love taught me in the past is that you're just going to hurt me, right? I'll be vulnerable, but I won't be vulnerable, right? Like, I can't give you this heart, but I can give you this dick. Like, that's how I was acting, right? And so it's like, I don't want to be vulnerable and open up and get intimate, right? And so, I don't know, man, like it gets to a point where I have to, change all of that shit, man. And I'm so grateful that, like, along this way, like, I found out that being comfortable is settling, right? And, like, how you gonna date when you don't even know yourself, right? Like, how you gonna date when you don't even know yourself? Because I know the disease of addiction has a lot more to do with drugs, right? It has to do with my thinking, it has to do with my behavior, but, like, how you gonna date when you don't even know yourself? So I'm grateful that along this journey, I've been able to know myself a little bit. I've been able to love myself, like, a little bit, man. Like, even not too long ago at work, man, like, I run groups, and so my coworker, she was facilitating a group. She goes, "Hey, you want to participate?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So in front of all my clients, she goes, like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I'm Chase." She goes, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm a drug counselor." She goes, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm a student." She goes, "Who are you?" And after like 4 or 5 times, I'm like, "Who the fuck am I, dude?" You know? And so about after 8 or 9 times, she goes, "Who are you, really?" And I said, "I'm just some dude trying to stay clean." And you know what? Like, just for today, I'm just some dude trying to stay clean. Like, I let the love that I searched for, like, guide me in these rooms. Like I felt so disconnected until I got to Narcotics Anonymous. Like, I never felt like I belonged till I got to Narcotics Anonymous. I've never had so many people, like, be so emotionally, like, engaged in making sure that I know that I'm okay, that I stay clean, that I know that I'm loved, right? And, like, I'm grateful that the love in these rooms has taught me to be a better son, like, be a better father, like, be a better student, be a better house manager for the place that I run in LA, be a better drug counselor, be a trusted servant at the conventions that I even get to participate in, man. Like, when I was 13 years old, like, I remember I had to do cocaine a few times to really get that cocaine high. Like, I had to do heroin a few times to really smoke it off the foil and get that heroin high. Like, I had to do Narcotics Anonymous a few times to, like, really realize, like, this is the feeling I've been searching for, like, my whole motherfucking life. Like, I'm grateful for the love in these rooms. Like, I'm grateful for the love in these rooms. Paloma, just, you know, like, thank you for your unconditional love, despite, you know, the man that I used to be. You know what I mean? And, like, I'm grateful for the love in these rooms. Stephanie, like, thank you. Like in the beginning of the year, she was really there for me, man. Like, I didn't know her personally, but my attachment trauma was, like, so activated after the end of this relationship in the beginning of the year. And, like, my best thinking is, like, okay, get a hot chick, okay? Get her, let's go to Disneyland, because that's the happiest place in the world. And so I'm at Disneyland with this hot chick, and it's not the happiest place in the world. I'm feeling like shit. And so I heard Stephanie has wisdom, man. And so she was a complete stranger. I called her. I said, I'm going through it, man. And she's like, where are you at? And I was like, I'm at Disneyland. I'm at a theme park. She goes, who are you with? And I said, I'm with some chick. She's like, the chick you broke up with? I was like, nah, some other chick. And she's like, why are you doing that? And I was like, I'm just looking outside of myself. And she's like, well, what even happened with the other chick? And I was like, I don't know, man. She said I was being too clingy and it pushed her away. And, like, I really, at that time, was just settling for less, right? I was just settling for sex. And I was telling Stephanie, I was just being too clingy, and I was trying to explain it to her. And she goes, stop. She goes, there's nothing wrong with you. She goes, sometimes we get so excited for love that it just happens to be the wrong person. And if she's not of you, then it doesn't matter. And I just started crying, right? And I don't even think she heard me crying on the phone, but I started crying, and I was like, thank you, I'm going to call you in a little bit. But all these kids saw me crying at Disneyland. And, like, the chick I was with saw me crying at Disneyland. I'm like, it's nothing, you know? Like, just a big shit show, you know? But you know what? That forged my friendship with Stephanie, and that's why I ended up coming out here. And so I do believe that, you know, my higher power, you know, work this out to where I got to be here. I really hope that I said something that really alleviated somebody's suffering just for a little bit, and I really hope I was just able to touch someone's spirit just a little bit. So I'm Chase. I'm from West LA. Thank you for letting me be of service.